Hi, everybody. Today's Tuesday, April 14, 2026, and our dear friend, Colonel Wilkerson. Welcome back there.
Good to be with you, Nima.
Larry, let me start with the blockade, the US blockade on Iran, and how effective that could be. And what is your understanding of this move, with the negotiation, the talks happening, and right in the middle of the talks in Islamabad, Donald Trump announcing a blockade on Iran. What does that mean?
First of all, let me say that I think bringing Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to confront the Iranians in Islamabad, even if they kept their mouths shut, was an era of absolute idiocy. Why would you bring the two people who pretended to be diplomats into that meeting, which you have given some credibility, limited to be sure, but some, and destroy it without even trying? I mean, the Iranians think those two guys are precisely what those two guys are: lying, deceitful, grifting jerks. Well, so why bring them? So that was my first impression of this whole thing, and then second was the cavalier way that we apparently treated the 10 points that the Iranians gave to the world, and that I got early because Trita Parsi did a translation and sent it to me. A little bit different order to the things stated, but nonetheless the same things. And knowing full well that there's not probably a single one on there that Trump gives a hang about, and certainly not very many, if any, that he would concede. And then to go into the negotiations. Well, I had to suppose that what was happening was exactly what happened before, that we were going to go into negotiations and we're going to attack them in the middle of the negotiations. And of course, as far as I can tell, despite word coming out of Jerusalem and word coming out of Washington about Lebanon, the Israelis didn't do squat to stop. They even speeded up and intensified their operations in Lebanon. So my question about the whole thing, Nima, get around to your question, is I don't understand what we were doing. I just don't understand what we were doing. Now, with regard to the blockade, I say the same thing, because we're not blockading anything. And apparently, the limited attacks we made on Harg Island, if I'm being told correctly, I don't even know that we made the attacks, but that's what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing it from fairly reliable sources. What were they supposed to do? Because they were not sufficient to do anything significant in the way of damage. And was that because we simply couldn't do it? Or was it because, as Trump said afterwards, maybe trying to backfill, well, we didn't do anything really bad, but we will, holding that over their head? I don't know. But there is no control by anyone other than the Iranians, and they don't have full control, not even with the Omanis on the other side helping them, of the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. There simply isn't. You just watch it, and there's not. So what are we trying to do? We're telling the world we're controlling it. We're not controlling it. The Iranians are telling the world that we're not controlling it, but they're not really doing anything untoward with regard to stopping warships or anything like that. So I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are, except I do know that I see a lot of tankers and a lot of ships still off the strait, not plying the strait. And I know that economists are telling me that by end of June, we'll have a recession, a global recession. And by end of August, beginning in September, we might have a global depression. And I know that all that Trump's saying about us having plenty of LNG and plenty of oil and all the rest of that garbage is irrelevant if the world's commerce is brought to some sort of a halt or even messed with majorly. Then you're going to have tremendous problems. And that disturbs me because I see the lack of strategic focus and the lack of a real strategy that I saw at the inception of this on 28 February now.
Yeah.
So what are they doing is my question. And why are we doing it?
Yeah. I think Donald Trump needed somehow these 2 weeks of ceasefire. I don't know if that was only merely a military strategy, because of the shortage of what is happening with offensive and defensive sort of, aspects of the war. But these 2 weeks is about sending more weapons to Israel, sending more missiles to
I,
the.
I don't see how that's happening in any great extent because we don't have them. I mean, we're stealing from allies, THAAD, things like that, but we can't bring tomahawks out of whole cloth. We can't invent these things out of thin air. And I know what the chart showed in terms of shortages and whether or not we could replenish those shortages in any reasonable amount of time. Some of the munitions, yes, we can, but critical munitions we can't, which is why you see Israel not shooting very much at Iranian missiles coming in. And you see more Iranian missiles landing and having devastating impact. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm on YouTube now. Twice I'm on YouTube giving formal lectures. It's AI. It's AI generated. I've made a complaint to YouTube. They haven't done anything so far, but I'm on there. They're good lectures. Somebody wrote it and wrote a pretty good lecture. And I'm talking about now the principal water facility for Tel Aviv being utterly destroyed. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm saying it on YouTube, and I'm saying it with enormous skill and enormous facts, at my fingertips. And you see it, you'll know it's not me. It's my picture, it's my voice, it's my mannerisms, but I'm doing this all the time, and I'm going, And it's a great lecture on the Eilat water facility if it really happened. I'm saying on that YouTube, which has already got 39,000 hits in about an hour, it says Tel Aviv is without water. It's without potable water. Is that true? I don't know. I tried to check before I went on with Tucker. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. But if it is, and I don't put it beyond Iran's capability to have done it, they've showed that kind of accuracy and that kind of devastating missilery. It could be happening. And if that's happening and they don't have any water in Tel Aviv, that's a real problem, a significant problem from Netanyahu. Plus, I saw the polls this morning. He's down in the polls. What's he going to do now if it looks like, is he just going to say no elections? Yeah. That's, to me, right now, Lebanon and what he's doing in Lebanon, what Erdogan has said he might do to Netanyahu. I know he's a big mouthpiece. And what we've said apparently to Netanyahu to knock it off, what is happening elsewhere in Israel is indicative to me that we have lost the bubble on this. And Trump really doesn't know how to deal with Netanyahu, period, doesn't know. Even if he didn't have inordinate influences on him like Miriam Adelson's money and all that, he doesn't know what to do about it. Did you see the interview with John Kerry where John Kerry was asked, had he ever dealt with Netanyahu? Yeah. Of course I have, and he talked about what it was like, but that I don't know that this is true, but they were never as forthcoming as Trump is being with every request that Netanyahu makes. So why is that happening? Well, the suggestion there, of course, is Epstein and Miriam's dollars and such. But I think he's actually trying to develop some distance between himself and Netanyahu right now. And if Netanyahu doesn't do what he is told to do with regard to Lebanon, that distance is going to grow. Well, what does that mean? We're certainly not going to leave Israel alone, I don't believe. It's getting, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's getting more dangerous every minute, not better. Wars are supposed to, if you're winning, get better. This one's getting worse and worse and worse. And all Trump does is just keep pulling things out of his rear end.
Yeah. Here is the video that you've mentioned, Larry.
By the way, do you know that was the table? Was Cargill actually attacked in a serious way?
I think Recently, no. Just right after the ceasefire, there were some sort of rumors, but it didn't happen that much.
Okay.
No,
That's what I
no,
suspected, but I
yeah,
saw it again this
no,
morning. So, okay.
no, didn't
Sorry.
happen.
Go
There,
ahead.
yeah.
Part of any conversations like that? I know he's made that pitches to past administrations. Were you ever a part of that? And were you surprised that he was able to convince Trump to do this?
Well, I was part of any number of conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu,
But of him
conversations that took
pitching
place in other
the
countries.
U.S. to strike Iran.
Yes, he wanted us to strike. He came to President Obama. He made a presentation to ask to strike. President Obama refused. President Biden refused. President Bush refused. The only president who has agreed to this, obviously, is President Trump. And it's really
Larry, this guy was in the cage when it came to the previous presidency about Obama, Biden, George W. Bush. But right now he's out of the cage. He's doing whatever he wants to do. Even with J.D. Vance, he said that J.D. Vance is briefing him daily.
Briefing Kerry?
Briefing Benjamin Netanyahu.
Oh, Bibi, yeah.
Yeah. This is the reality of the Trump administration. I think nobody can ignore that Benjamin Netanyahu knows every detail about the negotiation, what's going on, what they're going to talk about, what would be the agenda under what. He knows everything. And
I was told he called him from Pakistan 6 or 7 times a day to let him know what was going on. Yeah. That's a hell of a way to conduct negotiations, isn't it? Bibi can't be there, but Bibi is there through the Vice President of the United States.
Donald Trump's problem is not in Washington, is in Israel.
Yes.
And he knows how to manipulate the situation and he has look at Steve Miller, you look at Jared Kushner.
Makes me think more.
Witkoff.
Yeah, it makes me think more and more and more that Bibi has an Epstein file, Mossad file on Trump. Probably Melania too. One of the reasons she came out preempting what was maybe going to come out about her was that fear. I think he has a file on Trump, and that file is damning. I can't explain Trump's behavior otherwise. Miriam's billions, I don't think, would buy the United States committing suicide, which to a certain degree it is doing with Donald Trump. I just don't believe it, but I would believe it if it were a really salacious Epstein file on Donald Trump and perhaps on his wife too. Because that's the kind of character that Donald Trump has. That kind of thing would drive him because that tarnishes his reputation, which is now being depicted as Jesus.
Yeah. He attacked Pope as well. He attacked and he said that he's not happy with what Pope is talking about.
And attacked him at a time that Leo, the first Augustinian, is getting ready to go to Augustus's country in Africa to celebrate a little bit. Augustus or Augustine, however you want to say it. That's unconscionable that he picked that moment to do it. Unconscionable that he did it anyway. I mean, the Pope has every right to say what he would say about the kind of killing we're doing in Iran, this indiscriminate bombing, and the kind of killing that Bibi's doing in Lebanon. He's killing druggists, dry cleaners, women and children. There's nothing about this that is Hezbollah oriented. It's just Bibi venting his ire on Lebanon. Lebanon sends some rockets in. He can't kill those people who've sent the rockets in, so he kills the people in the country.
No way that these negotiations in Washington, that we had the first round of these direct negotiations between the Lebanese government and Israelis. And the Lebanese part, they said that was positive, the first meeting. But I don't know how can these negotiations, is that possible to get somewhere with Israel? Because Israel doesn't want to get out of Lebanon. They want to stay there. They want to make a buffer zone even beyond the region that they're in.
Right.
This is the
And
problem. I don't see Hezbollah, somehow backing down.
I don't either. And so far, I think there is a stalemate, or Hezbollah is slightly winning. If you count the number of tanks destroyed, the number of soldiers killed, the number of casualties in general, I think Hezbollah is winning, just as they did in 2006. And that makes Netanyahu mad. It makes him angry. And then he becomes even more vengeful and more poisonous in his decision making. He's also got an enormous problem in his own country with the reservist call up, where they have a 30% or so AWOL rate. And he's got a problem with he's running out of reservists. And to a certain extent, he's running out of an ability to manage his own economy, because he's had these people in arms for so long. He's calling even more up. Some are reporting, and that means they're not at their jobs. And the economy is already reeling from the attacks and so forth. I don't know how they do this without major changes, and I don't see Netanyahu making them. So I have to say that either somebody's going to shoot Netanyahu, well, a high possibility that it'll backfire on him, what he did to Rabin, for example, and a settler will shoot him. Now, he's well guarded, as I understand it. In fact, someone asked me this morning, how come you see these other people exposing themselves from time to time, other people being Iranians, Lebanese, and so forth, leaderships, and you never see Netanyahu exposing himself? Is he a big coward? My answer to them was yes, he is. He values his own life more than he values the life of the state of Israel, period. So how can you be a bigger coward than that?
Two major issues with the negotiations, Larry. One of them is the Strait of Hormuz, and the other is the nuclear program of Iran. It seems that the basic, the main disagreement between the two parties were based on these two issues.
But did they even talk about the other issues? My reports were that they just kind of desultorily dealt with the other issues, that those two issues dominated. Did they even talk about such issues as relieving sanctions, primary and secondary, reparations, and things like that?
It didn't get there.
I didn't think so. Yeah, that was the report I got. Yeah. Those are, they've got to be important to the Iranians, and yet we didn't even get to them. I mean, we're so focused on those issues that we can't get to other issues. So how could you ever expect negotiations to succeed? I'm sorry, go ahead. I said I wanted you to talk.
No. They started, Larry. It seems that the negotiations were started by the case of Strait of Hormuz. And Donald Trump said, I want to be part of that. I want to make money out of this Strait of Hormuz. This is
so go to the Omanis and ask them to cut you a share.
They said that this is not the Gulf of Mexico that you want to take something.
Did he want the name changed to the American Gulf?
He said that. I want to put it the Strait of Trump. It's
the
not
Strait of Trump. SOT.
This is, I think, the question with the negotiations, with the talk, is some sort of stalemate, Larry. I don't see any willingness on the part of the Trump administration to address that, because you have to get ready. If you're serious with the negotiations, you have to go the way that you saw. I've seen Iranian Iranian delegation going to Islamabad. I have never seen such a complete, they had everything there, each and every dimension of the negotiations there, economically, politically, legally, everything there to negotiate. But I haven't seen that on the part of the J.D. Vance and the negotiators from Washington.
We haven't sent that sort of team at all to Ukraine, to any other disputed area or problem that we have. We don't send a team. We didn't send it to Putin. We didn't send it to Lavrov. Marco Rubio didn't bring it to Riyadh. We don't send working groups and teams that know how to do the details of diplomacy. That old expression, the devil's in the details, is doubly true for diplomacy. It's the details when you're making treaties, when you're doing anything like that, but certainly in diplomacy in general, it's very, very detailed. And you need working groups. You should have had a working group for every one of the items on the agenda. At least one working group full of experts on that issue, like sanctions relief, primary and secondary. We don't do that. We just send a couple of jerks who are ultimately empowered by the President of the United States, and that power is you either do it our way or we'll blow you away. That's our idea of diplomacy.
Because the case of the nuclear program is so much complicated when it comes to the technical aspects of the deal. And you have to have the people who are capable of making, because the decision maker would hear from the technical teams.
Yes.
What does that mean? What does this mean? And how can we manage that? Then he comes to some sort of solution. We didn't see that.
The teams we took to the Soviet Union, Nima, would often fill 2 or 3 airplanes. That when we were doing a treaty like the ABM treaty or like the SALT treaty or the INF treaty, Reykjavik, when we went to Reykjavik, that was probably a slimmed down team, if you will, because the president was along. It wasn't slimmed down in terms of the president, but it was slimmed down in terms of the issues that were going to be covered. Nonetheless, a pretty large team goes. Sometimes it was several airplanes full of people. We don't send anybody but Witkoff and Kushner and maybe 1 or 2. This time we sent the vice president. Whoopee.
Yeah.
Who is reporting all the time to Bibi, as you said. It almost, the way I was debriefed on it, it almost looked like he was more in touch with Bibi in terms of serious issues and discussions than he was the people across the table from him.
Larry, how does China see the blockade? Because we've learned from the defense ministry of China, they said, we're going to send our tankers in and out and nobody can do anything about it.
All right.
And
I think you're going to see more inclination by Xi Jinping to not take chances, because they're not really taking chances, but to stand up to the empire, because the empire is very, very out of its, let's put it this way. I was going to say out of its mind, but it's out of its mind with regard to what it's doing, that China can interpret as indirectly, if not directly, aimed at it. Not at Iran, but at China. And one of the most ostentatious examples of this is the Israeli and U.S. bombing of that railroad. That railroad that was going to take about, I think it's 25 hours for that railroad. The ones that come through the center, it's 16 hours. Think about that for a minute. Pacific ports in China, instead of 2 to 2.5 to 3 days to get their commerce to the heart of Europe, it takes 16 hours. That is a hell of a change. That is a global event-changing change. And that one, I think I saw that it was 25 hours from the Pacific ports to Bandar Abbas or Chabahar, wherever the terminus is. And then they were going to go on up the Persian Gulf and into the heart of Europe from the soft underbelly. They're bombing that. Of course, it makes not much difference that you bomb railroads, because as the Germans and the Japanese and everybody else in World War II showed, you build the railroads back pretty fast. But that's directly aimed at China. Directly aimed at China. There's no possible confusion in Xi Jinping's mind or Wang Yi's mind or anybody in China's mind that that's what it's aimed at. And to a certain extent, this entire conflict, if it has any strategic rationale at all, it's China. Whether it's just the fact that China's friendly with Iran, or it's a bigger fact that China's using that railroad and it threatens maritime commerce. Imagine that. No need for the Bab el-Mandeb nor the Strait of Hormuz because everything's coming over land or through pipelines.
Larry, we see some sort of desperation in Donald Trump himself, because the way that he's attacking each and everybody is not just about the Pope. It's about United Kingdom, Spain. It's just lashing out at everybody, because Europe doesn't matter anymore. We don't care about them anymore because they're not helping us. And today we've learned that they're putting a lot of pressure on Saudi Arabia as well. The foreign minister of Saudi Arabia said, and we are making decisions based on our calculations, not based on the other party's calculations. You know, these sort of changes that are happening are so much important, because Saudi Arabia, just imagine Saudi Arabia before the war. Just imagine other countries, Qatar, before the war. They know right now what would be the capabilities of the United States in defending them. That's why they're coming to some sort of understanding, in my opinion, that could bring huge changes to the region, that could bring huge changes to Europe. When you see, for example, you know, it's a prime minister of Spain or president of Spain? It's prime minister.
I think it's the president.
The president of Spain,
Yeah.
going to China. It's a huge change, by the way, because he was attacked by Donald Trump that he's going to do everything. I'm going to cut everything. And he said, oh, we're going to start a new relationship, a new sort of, partnership with China. These are the responses to Donald Trump. What is the way out for Donald Trump? This trap that he has made for himself in the Middle East. Do you see any way out for him?
I think I know you're saying that sort of metaphorically, but it's really the trap for the United States as much as it is, and more importantly for the United States as for the president. The president will go. Presidents come and go. And that's what is concerning me, is why the establishment in this country is more or less adhering to this line of foreign policy, security policy. I can't figure it out. The president is not that powerful that there aren't people in this country that could either persuade him, sway him, whatever the term you want to use, to a different and more positive foreign and security policy. There are even people within the Republican Party who could do that. So why are they so meticulously adhering to his role in what he's doing, from dealing with Pope Leo to dealing with Iran? The only thing I can figure is that they are so still caught up in the Trump ability to muster votes that they think that's the best place to be, whether they're Lindsey Graham, John Thune, or whomever. And I think they're deadly wrong. So why are they doing this? Why are they wrong? Are they really that stupid? I mean, the Congress could stand up at any minute and check him. They could stand up and check him. And I think politically now that act would be more to their favor if they were Republicans, and certainly if they were Democrats, than to their disfavor, politically and otherwise. So why aren't they doing it? What is it that's keeping this man in his crazy house and not in a straitjacket and frog marched out by a federal marshal? What is it that's doing that? Is it just abject fear? Is it mesmerization? Are they hypnotized by him? What is it? It can't be. It just must not be his policies. And yet I'm forced back on thinking that the majority of them, or a small majority, must support his policies. And then you have to ask the question, why? And I keep coming back to China. I keep coming back to even imperfectly executed, these moves are anti-China, and therefore we're going to support them. I don't know that that's the answer to the question, the mystery, but I suspect it's a part of it at least. They don't have anybody else. And he is taking actions. I should have added Russia in there. He is taking actions that ultimately seem to be anti-Russia, and he's taking actions that overtly are anti-China. I don't see any other way to parse it.
So do you think that if they somehow, Donald Trump reaches the point that he needs to leave Israel, politically at least, with the war in, I'm not talking about just leaving Israel, I'm talking about with the escalations in the Middle East, says that's enough, I'm not going to be there. What would be the condition? It's going to be, when you look at the connections that Donald Trump has with the Zionist agenda, it's basically comes from Netanyahu and his administration, the people in Israel, you see the AIPAC having a bigger role in that.
I think we're beyond that sort of thing now. I know John Mearsheimer keeps harping on that aspect of it, but I think we're well beyond the power of a lobby or the power of billionaires to influence Donald Trump. I don't think we're beyond the power of Epstein and the files being at least partially, if not fully, I don't think we'll ever get them fully released, being a power to stop him or to persuade him to do what he's doing. The only thing I missed from that New York Times revelation, if you will, on what happened during the discussions, that Bibi Netanyahu was the principal influencer on Donald Trump for the war with Iran. The only thing missing was Epstein. Even conjecture about Epstein. I think because that attacks Donald Trump where he lives. Donald Trump lives in his narcissism. He lives in his megalomania. He lives in Donald Trump. And if Epstein truly threatens that fabric, Donald Trump will go to his own suicide to prevent that. And certainly he will go to America's suicide to prevent that. So how do you get out of that? How do you get out of the point that you have a president who is absolutely bound and determined to stop that from happening? Israel is the instrument of making it happen, and therefore you're never going to abandon Israel. That's a hell of a situation to be in for America, but I think that's a good encapsulation of where we are. Otherwise, I can't explain it. As Kerry said, we've had occasions in the past. Bill Clinton was that close with Israel. Bill Clinton was the one who screwed up the talks, the Oslo Accord talks, and screwed up the follow-on talks. Bill Clinton did that, and he did it in conjunction with Ehud Barak. Ooh, who's the man mentioned quite a few times in the Epstein files? Ehud Barak. So are we at a juncture in American diplomacy and foreign and security policy where one man, but we're really not talking about one man, he's only the agent. We're talking about all these elitist pedophiles, purveyors, whatever you want to call them, being influenced by a set of files that are available for blackmail at any moment. And we're talking about that coalescing to make American foreign and security policy. I cannot explain it any other way. I really can't. All these other presidents have been influenced in some way, starting in the beginning. They've been influenced more or less. LBJ was influenced greatly by Israel. John Kennedy was not. Jimmy Carter was not very influenced by Israel. Look at others and you'll see a little bit here and a little bit there, but you will not see someone who is the slave of Israel until you get to Donald Trump. As Kerry said, Biden and Obama even told him no on occasion. When has Trump told him no on anything?
Just the breaking news right now, Larry, is that Israel and Lebanon have agreed to enter direct negotiations following today's talk. And here is what Hillary
Wow.
Clinton
They're
said
going to
about
talk to each other directly. Woo!
Here is what Hillary Clinton said.
Law is not by any means defeated because we're engaged in a war now in southern Lebanon. I would wish the following. Number one, and finally there seems to be some opening here. I've been advocating behind the scenes for this now for several months. Israel should support this Lebanese government. There has not been a better Lebanese government since the Syrians and Iranians assassinated Hariri. They are trying. Do they have all the capacity they need? No. But they are trying to set up a government in Lebanon that can deal with the threat that Hezbollah poses internally to Lebanon. And so rather than making their task even harder, work with this new government in Lebanon. See how far you can help them to go to disarm Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Hillary's wrong from the very start. That son of a... Hillary Clinton just makes me so angry. I despise her. I utterly despise her. And I don't say that about many human beings. She's got it wrong. It's not the Lebanese government that should back the United States and go after Hezbollah. Number one, they don't have the capacity to do that. Number two, they don't need to do that. And number three, they shouldn't do that. What they should seek is an accommodation with Israel that says to Israel, Hezbollah is a part of Lebanon. Face it, dude. Now leave us alone. And then to Hezbollah, hey, we've got them to leave you alone. Stop what you're doing, and let's move on from there. That's the only possibility that you could arrive at some realistic solution. To say to the government, you've got to take care. And what are we going to say next, Naima? We're going to say exactly what we said all along to these Lebanese governments, no matter who they were, no matter what their sects were and their divisions were, Christians on top, of course. You will get armed to the teeth by us to take care of them. And then the arm to the teeth becomes, okay, there's New Jersey off the coast with 16-inch guns to shoot into the Druze. There's the hills. I don't know. It's insane. We're never going to have a government in Lebanon that is so lashed up with the United States and what the United States wants to do and how it wants to do it and the force it wants to employ to do it that is capable of dealing with Hezbollah. No way. So what do you have to do? You have to come to some kind of political accommodation. Oh, wow. Who did this best? Who did Netanyahu kill? Who did this best? And why did he kill him? Because he did it best. And Netanyahu didn't want him to do it. I'm talking about Nasrallah, of course. They killed him, the man who could have done this. You need to incorporate as a political entity. And if you want to give your armed forces some strength as a military wing of your armed forces too, Hezbollah. And you need to stop this Israeli pounding of Lebanon every decade in order to keep it from becoming an economic competitor. That's what people don't understand about Israel's bombing of Lebanon. All you got to do is look at it since 82 and even before 82. The bombing is not necessarily to kill Hezbollah. It's to destroy the capability of the Lebanese people who were once the best and most powerful and successful entrepreneurs of the Eastern Mediterranean from being that again, because that's Israel's role now. That's Israel's role to have the gas, the oil, the water, the beaches, and to have the number one economy in the region. Israel's role, not Lebanon's. So Beirut, go away. And if you don't, we'll bomb you every 10 years to make sure your economy can't be stood up on a equal keel again. That's it. So Hillary, go to hell.
So the outcome of these negotiations.
Satan wouldn't have her. The devil would not have Hillary. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the outcome of these negotiations would be to somehow convince the government in Lebanon, or sending more weapons, intelligence, and whatever they
Yep.
need to make a new civil war in Lebanon.
Exactly. Lebanon would fight them from one end, and the Israelis would fight them from the other, and we would have a god-awful mess, as if we don't have a god-awful mess right now. You know, I've always said, I have no proof of it, I would not be too hard to convince that Israel had much to do with the blowing up of the fertilizer in the harbor. I wouldn't take nothing to convince me of that. And look at what we've done. We've built the largest embassy, I think, that we've ever built in the world. Extraordinary size to it, extraordinary depth to it, extraordinary location and such. In where? In Lebanon. Why? Because it's everybody but diplomats. It's Mossad, it's MI6, it's CIA, it's all manner of intel and assets that are up in space and so forth and so on. And it's there because we want to establish a bastion in that area to prevent China from coming through the central base road, through the Caucasus and through Central Asia. That's why it's there. It's not there for the Lebanese. You imagine that sprawling complex is there for the Lebanese and for diplomacy with the Lebanese? Hell no. It's there because we're taking advantage of their strategic location and we don't give a shit about them. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And that's the truth about that woman that just spoke too, Hillary Clinton. She doesn't give a squat about the Lebanese people. All she cares about is her reputation and getting her word in as to what ought to be our policy. That's all she cares about. Our policy should be Lebanon, Tel Aviv, Beirut, Tel Aviv, you're equal. And we're going to back you and we're going to back you. But we're not going to back you to the exclusion of you or vice versa. I mean, that ought to be our diplomacy. And I would say that our diplomacy ought to aim more at Lebanon than it does at Israel, because Israel has become a liability. Long ago, they became a liability for the United States. And right now, they are a deathly liability. With Donald Trump in the White House, they are a deadly, deathly liability for us. And she's there talking like, this is all. But of course, for her, it's all about saving Israel. It's all about making Israel viable and successful and the number one state in the Eastern Med. I'm sorry, Hillary, that's gone. Done away with. You had a lot to do with it. Go away. Go away. And oh, by the way, your comment about Muammar Gaddafi, where you said we came, we saw, and he died, was one of the worst, most impolitic, worst comments an American diplomat ever made in their life. So go away, Hillary. Don't talk to anybody anymore. I'm sorry, but I detest her.
Yeah, we have the reaction of the Lebanese Amal movement. They said they reject today's Israeli-Lebanese talks in Washington. And they're already, they're part of Hezbollah, and they don't, even Hezbollah, I don't see, Larry, it seems that Lebanon is heading toward
civil war.
Yeah.
Again. And that's precisely what Israel wants. If they're in civil war, they can't possibly economically or otherwise threaten Israel.
Israel would be more than happy to see that happen.
Yes, absolutely. That's what they're trying to get to happen. Just like they really are trying to do in Syria, if you think about it. And they've done in Iran, but they've not been successful. They've just destroyed lots and lots of infrastructure and killed lots and lots of people and committed many, many war crimes, which doesn't seem to be bothering anybody anymore. Certainly it doesn't bother Donald Trump. But we're just doing war crime after war crime. So are the Israelis in Lebanon in particular, but in the West Bank too. War crime after war crime. And no one is saying anything. No one's raising a flag, not even the UN. We have moved on to a dimension of global affairs that I never thought I would see in my lifetime.
Russia and Iran, Larry, are we can say, in an active war with the United States. Both of them are fighting somehow, directly and indirectly with the United States, one in Ukraine, the other one in Iran. And as time goes by, I see these two countries moving more to the east. I think the outcome of what is happening right now, seeing the big picture, is how they're getting closer to China. It seems that China is, look at the way that Europe sees China, or at least we had the Spain going there and talking with China. We have the minds, we had UAE going to China.
Right.
UAE is not talking to Iranians, but they're willing to go to China. And China wants a better, calmer region when it comes to the West Asia. They want that. And do you see this, we were talking about BRICS, SCO, the East, the Eurasia concept replacing the United States in the region?
I don't see either China or Russia immediately replacing the United States in the region. What I see is possible two futures for the region. I see a fairly chaotic period, followed by perhaps a new allegiance with a great power, and then some stability. Or I see chaos, reasonable chaos. I see disruption, and then I see a complete sweep and change in the region. That is to say that the people get more power and the autocrats go, however long that takes and however bloody it might be. The first is probably more likely, but it's going to take longer because I think, as particularly the Saudis, but others too, are going to really want to see the developments before they place their bets, if you will, on China or Russia, or a China-Russia duo, or writ larger and more palatable probably for them, not necessarily their people, the BRICS, and joining that movement or being ostensibly connected with that movement. But a lot of this is going to depend on whether MBS follows through with what he's already said he's going to do, and that is shifting the pipelines over to Syria, flowing the oil up without going through Israel. That's a death knell for Israel, if there aren't enough death knells already out there. I don't think we're going to see a security organization in the Gulf region that replaces the United States in any visceral way that accommodates and is successful in accommodating that variety of countries' interests. So the GCC is dead. It always was pretty morbid anyway. Without the United States, it's completely dead. And that's the last point that I would make. We're gone. We're out of there after this is over. We may be painfully extracting ourselves, or we'll be extracting ourselves not so painfully, but we'll be gone. Here's the question for me, will we revert to previous practice and practice offshore balancing as a strategy for the region? Will we even have the naval, in particular, assets to do that? Or will we go all together and have no contacts other than the inevitable lingering economic and other contacts that we built up over a long period of time? I don't know, but I don't think we're, just as I said earlier, that NATO is toast and NATO's gone. The transatlantic link, if it even exists, is very, very weak right now. And I think before Trump is gone, we'll probably sever. The question there is, where will our nuclear umbrella extend to after that? Trump probably would say it doesn't go any further than the Atlantic Ocean. But I think, as I've said before, I think we're looking at some real changes blooming on the horizon. And those changes are being expedited, and many of them expedited in a dangerous way, by Donald Trump. But most of this is, again, the ultimate description here. Most of this is being caused by the tension between the empire and China, Russia, and BRICS, and all that represents in terms of power. power is leaving the Western Hemisphere. It's going east at China's beckoning, you know, come east, my friend, for prosperity, for economic success, come east. 60% of the world is already here.
Yeah. Larry, they saw it last. They published high resolution images of abandoned airstrip in the south of Isfahan, the operation that it was, the
Right.
rescue operation, the pilot rescue. And here is the footage. You remember what they said. Here is the footage that they published. Look at this. They said it was some sort of sand. They got stuck in sand, and this is not sand. This is, look at the region. You see, it's all about, it's asphalt. By the way, it's not sand. And
There's some pretty good. If that's what I think it is, that's pretty good cratering there too. That airfield would not have been usable with the craters at the what is that? Is that the west end or whatever? I don't know. That's Isfahan.
Yeah, a southern part of Isfahan. Southern part of Isfahan.
I got you. South is up. Okay, so the craters at that end and the craters down here at the pad, the taxiing and parking pad, that's probably caused by munitions. In other words, someone hit that with rocket fire, drones, or something. So what was the problem with the CJ-130s? They couldn't get off because they didn't have a runway that would let them take off? And were they struck in the parking area? That's what it looked like to me.
It seems that because they didn't tell us anything about the casualties, what has happened. They made some sort of story for all of us saying that the operation was successful, but I think sooner or later they have to, these sort of information gonna come out. Do you see that the day that they're somehow getting out with this administration, or we have to wait to the next administration to hear something?
Yeah, I mean, like you just showed right there, there's just too many ways for this information to get out. Now, it's being obfuscated and it's being propagandized. There's no question about that. And one wonders what the truth is anymore. I told you about me being on 2 different YouTube episodes now, giving very clear and I think very good lectures on geopolitics and strategy. It ain't me. It's someone else, but you can't tell it's not me. They've got my facial characteristics. They've got my manner down. The only thing they do all the time, like the person imitating me or the bot, is doing this all the time. I don't ever do that. So they got that wrong. But that's what we're looking at today. Whom do you believe in this world of manufactured truth?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, Nima. The last person I'm going to believe is Donald Trump. The next to last person I'm going to believe is Pete Hegseth. And the group of people I'm not going to believe is the American leadership.
The case of Pete Hegseth is so complicated. I don't know how long Donald Trump can he's just making.
He's having his 13th month of OSD, it used to be, protocol prayer services. This is his 13th month of doing this. And if you look at the invitation has flag officers and general officers, admirals and generals, have reserved seats in the front. It's not mandatory, but you have reserved seats in the front. All others will sit behind those 2 front rows, and no one will come who isn't on the list of invitees, which is DOD, civilian, and military members. So that's who comes to these prayer meetings, and yet they are not anything but optional. Now, what do you think is going to happen to a flag officer or an admiral who sits up in those, who doesn't sit up in those front rows and doesn't come? name taken down? I mean, do you need something to be able to do that? No, all you need is a pad and paper. What are they doing with these prayer meetings besides exercising Pete Hegseth's ability to stand on the stage and say good prayers and his preachers and all that? This is unconscionable, what's happening. Mixing religion and the military like that, I wouldn't have thought in my wildest imagination it would ever happen. And yet he's doing it now 13 months in a row. What do Jews do? What do Muslims do? What do agnostics do? What do atheists do? What do real Christians do when invited to these things? Sacrifice their careers by being consistent no-shows? And you can't tell me that they aren't keeping track of who comes and who doesn't come, because that's how they're determining who gets fired and who stays.
Larry, before wrapping up, here is the head of Mossad talking about the main mission on the part of Israel is the regime change in Iran. They don't care about what's going on, negotiation, talks, whatever is happening between Iran and the United States. Israel has its own policy. Here is what he said there.
המוסד פעל פעם נוספת בלב טהרן. הבאנו מודיעין מדויק עבור חיל האוויר, ופגענו בטילים שמאיימים על אזרחי ישראל. אך משימתנו טרם הושלמה. לא חשבנו שמשימה זו תושלם מיד עם שוך הקרבות. אך תכננו גם תכננו שהמערכה שלנו תימשך ותבוא לידי ביטוי גם בתקופה שלאחר התקיפות בטהרן. מחויבותנו תושלם רק כאשר יוחלף המשטר הקיצוני הזה. אותו משטר שרוצה את השמדתנו חייב לחלוף מן העולם. זו משימתנו, לא נמשיך להביט מנגד על איום קיומי נוסף. מתוך ציווי ברור, לעולם לא עוד.
Nima, you know, you could take the last few lines of that address, the last 2 or 3 sentences of that address, and put them in Abbas Araghchi's mouth or the president's mouth or the speaker of the Majlis or whatever, and they would be just as applicable. So you see what an intractable conflict we have here. The only difference being that Iran was unjustifiably attacked and Israel was the attacker. That's the only difference here in terms of the intractable situation we confront. And I got to say, from the perspective of a military professional, Iran's going to win this. So that guy is, you know, I don't know, IDF, Mossad, the leadership thereof, Ben Gvir, Smotrich, these people are animals. I would not say that about the Iranian leadership. So my wish is that the animals lose and the humans win.
They said that without the United States, they're not going to be able to continue the war. They're not going to get back to war without the United States. They know their capabilities. They're well aware of that.
I think that's true, but I don't see Donald Trump cutting that umbilical cord. I just don't. Not to this point. The things that he has said and done, as I indicated to you, tell me there's something much more personal about this than Miriam Adelson or Bibi Netanyahu. I don't think Donald Trump even likes Bibi Netanyahu. I think he despises him in truth. But there's something going on here. Why did Bibi Netanyahu get Jared Kushner's bed when he visited the United States? Jared Kushner left his own bedroom, his own bed, to let Bibi sleep in it. Why? Don't tell me it's because Jared loves Bibi or Bibi loves Jared. There's something going on here, and we don't know about it. And it's the reason this umbilical cord between Tel Aviv and Washington will not be broken so long as Donald Trump is president.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
Surely. I wish it weren't such a dismal picture.
Yeah. The picture is dismal. We cannot change it. We have to talk about it. I think it's not in our hand. It's not about, you know.
What bothers me is all the people that are dying. I mean, you know, for no purpose whatsoever.
No.
I mean, even if you look at it from the perspective that we're supposed to look at it, that Iran's the greatest state sponsor of terrorism on the face of the earth, but all which is a lie. It's the children and the women that are suffering and dying under these bombs. Anyway, thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, Larry.
You
See you soon.
got great kudos at the conference I was at. You know that Nima guy? Yeah, I know that Nima guy. Boy, he's doing a good job. Yeah, he's doing a good job.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you on Friday.
See you on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna get together.
Okay.
You, me, and Larry. Yeah.
Good. He's been making some statements. I want to check with him. See you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.